Hello, everybody. Happy February 18th, 2021. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have a fantastic boys basketball coach from Newtown, Tim Tallcouch. Coach Tallcouch, thanks so much for being able to come on, man.
Hey, Chris, I really appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to spending some time with you, and away we go, I guess.
It's great to always be able to, talk shop with coaches who are not just respected as you are, but you've seen a lot of the game in Connecticut and really know not just your area, but I think Connecticut itself. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to talk, like I said, basketball with you, coach. Now, before we get into your time with Newtown, and I know we talked before I started the recording about your lengthy resume, give me kind of your background a little bit, coach, because I'm sure it's intriguing.
Well, 1992, I started teaching at Westhill High School in Stamford, Connecticut. And I had also been teaching previously for 5 years at an alternative high school in Bridgeport. But I needed to get on the books with the state retirement. So finally in 1992, Westhill hired me, and I became the girls freshman coach in 1992 at Westhill High School. And then 1993, my mentor, Jeff Buzzy, who's been around a lot as well, he kind of stole me from the girls' side, and I've been on the boys' side ever since. I was his assistant for 8 years, and then in 2000, I became the head coach at Westhill High School. Um, and then I spent a couple years as a head coach there. We added children to the mix here. I was driving Seymour to Stanford, and it wasn't working that great. So I found this job in Newtown. So I relocated to Newtown teaching in 2002, took a year off, and found a job at Emmett O'Brien Tech. And I spent about 4 years at Emmett O'Brien Tech from '03 to '07. I had a great time at the tech school. As a matter of fact, I still coach boys track there. So that's my kind of moonlight in the springtime with some sunlight outdoors doing that. But after those 4 years at O'Brien Tech, kind of got hungry to get back into the FCIAC, and I spent 5 years at Wilton High School, and then all of a sudden the job opens up at Newtown High School, and I'm at Newtown High School since 2012, 2013.
It really sounds like, coach. It's not like you've just stayed with, and I know, it's great to be able to stay with a program for a long time, but it really, and I think the intriguing part to your story, coach, is you went from Westhill, which has a lot of talent, maybe not in the realms of basketball at the time, but still you found ways to be able to get it out of that. Then you go to, you talk about, Emmett O'Brien Tech, very intriguing place there because tech schools kind of get looked at as, the outliers, but they surprise. I mean, look what Prince Tech has done over the last couple of years.
Correct.
Then you go to Wilton, and now you're at Newtown. It really sounds like each stop you were at, you probably learned a lot about yourself and your coaching style.
Well, yeah. One of the things that I really think that I'm proud of is I've actually felt that I've learned at every step, and I've actually think that I've gotten better as I've gotten older. Stuff that we've seen, things that I've tried, making adjustments, being able to relate to the players a little bit more, and even to the parents. It's been a phenomenal journey, and hopefully we still have a little bit of gasoline in the tank here to cup off for at least till I retire from teaching down the road here. But it's been great. I mean, I've enjoyed it. Made a lot of friends, coached against a lot of legends too, and it's been phenomenal.
Now you talk about what you learned from each stop. What was in all your stops, not just one, but all of them, what was probably the biggest thing that you learned either about yourself or your coaching style? And it could be at anywhere from West Hill all the way to even Newtown now.
Well, I think the first thing I learned was I was extremely, extremely hard on the officials. I was I mean, I could tell you stories, but I was tough on the officials, the Fairfield County officials, and I think that's the first thing. Once I realized it's not about me, and you're not going to change the calls, um, that became a huge plus for me. The other thing that I learned was I needed to adapt as the game adapted, as things began to become more spaced out, so to speak, as the three ball started to become more dominant. I think at Emmett O'Brien Tech, that was one of the things we had shooters, and I decided, wow, a little more space could be good. A little more dribble, drive, and kick is important. Um, so I think that has been two changes. Um, I do believe that I have also allowed my captains and team to have a little more say in what we do, because I feel that we use the term family, so to speak, but I think that in today's day and age, where I think it's value to have more people invest themselves into what we do. And I think, just yesterday, my three captains reached out to me and said, "Hey, coach, um, we got something we want to talk about." 30 minutes before practice, they came in. We talked about something that they wanted to see. They heard what I wanted to see, and we came to a mutual agreement. I don't think that, 29 years ago, that would have happened,
That's
so to
pretty cool.
speak.
That's pretty cool, coach, to be able to know that, like, with everybody has flaws. Nobody is perfect. I mean, Tom Brady is not perfect, even though it seems like he's perfect with everything that he has. I mean, he just won another Super Bowl, 7 Super
Absolutely.
Bowls. But I think to know that there is growth, and for you to be able to, as you became more comfortable and realized there were things that needed to be done in order for you to continue to grow. Like you mentioned, and I'm glad that you mentioned the fact about basketball changing, because 15 years ago, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but in basketball terms or sports terms, it's like 4 decades. You think about how the game has changed from the center position, to where the center was a big time position, to now, like you said, it's spreading the court, shooting threes. I mean, I'm sure your players watch NBA games or maybe college games. They see Damian Lillard putting up threes from half court, Steph Curry. So if you're not adjusting and growing, you get left behind. And then if you get left behind, the wins are not going to be there.
Well, that's very true, and the ability to stay in jobs is not going to be there. I think that's the great thing with being a coach, and being able to adjust, and not to stay rooted in, like you said, maybe 15 years ago we would do things differently, or even 5 years ago we might have done things differently. The ownership with the team has been huge. I remember once in Wilton, we created sort of a leadership team, and that idea came from Tom Coughlin. I had heard with the Giants, where there was some talk that there was pressure for him not doing well. He might lose his job, so he creates this leadership council. I felt at the time we were kind of in a rut at Wilton, and we created this leadership council of seniors, juniors, sophomores, and a freshman, created a parents group, a lot of different things that, like I said, when I grew up in the 90s coaching with Jeff Bussey, no, you wouldn't do things like that. It was your way or the highway, so to speak.
Now, the amount of leagues that you have been in, and you've been in a few, what has been, because obviously, I think of Tech. If I'm going to compare the league that I know best, which is the Naugatuck Valley League, if
Right.
I compare that, if I'm thinking like football terms, football in the NVL, football in the FCIAC, there's 100% a difference, because in the NVL you have athletes, but you don't have football players, and that's no disrespect. And I think a lot of the coaches in the NVL would agree with me. There's athletes, but their main focus is not football, because they're focusing on other sports. FCIAC, they breed Division I guys left and right. So the question I have for you, coach, is what did you see from each stop in each league that you were in? What was the difference for you as far as the coaching side?
Wow. Well, cutting my teeth in the FCIAC first, I mean, you had so many legendary coaches. I mean, you saw the Charlie Bentleys at Harding, Vito Montelli at St. Joe's, Mike Walsh at Trinity Catholic. Um, Guy like Buddy Bray at Trumbull High School has been there forever as well. You learn a little bit about all of them, but I will say this, the tremendous athletic ability of these players that I saw back in the 90s, 2000s, et cetera, phenomenal, phenomenal. The press defenses, you know, the pushing the basketball. Um, it's just it's amazing, and I also saw what evolved in those years is that the suburban schools began to catch up to the city schools, because I think the AAU programs, as far as you know, kids played more, they played all year round, and when city schools used to come in and they used to press you, it was over, it was done. But I don't believe the pressure is as lethal as it used to be back 20 plus years ago. And then to stop at O'Brien Tech, that was where I really felt that I developed a system, probably where I became this individual that, you know, the 1-3-1 was always going to be a part of my repertoire. I man to man was there, but the red is the 1-3-1. I've called that forever. And those players, you know, in the tech league, we say that maybe the kids, you know, the level isn't obviously what the FCIAC was, but you know what? If you were, and this is what we do as coaches, if you sold it to these kids, they wanted it and they bought it because they were hardworking kids in the Valley, and they were phenomenal in embracing it. And we practiced 6 days a week or 5 days a week, and it was phenomenal. And then back to the FCIAC, I was at a suburban school at Wilton. I had to rebuild it. They had 4 coaches in about 5 years. So I started to rebuild that. And that was just, again, evolving myself as a coach and as a human being. And then into the SWC, you know, for better or for worse, you know, the SWC was always looked at as maybe the little brother of the FCIAC, but no more. You know, you got the Colbys, the Notre Dames, Bunnells. I mean, there's a lot of great athletes, a lot of great coaches, things that we steal from one another, and the athleticism in this league is phenomenal as well. I mean, the key there is it's a smaller league, so we kind of like know each other a little bit more than maybe what we did in the FCIAC.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I think looking at it, look, Colby Cathedral is number 10. And
Yes.
if you care about polls, I know a lot of people don't, you know, but Colby Cathedral is number 10. And then another conference, which I would say over the last maybe 7 to 8 plus years has really started to, I mean, think about it. The CCC, you have Bristol Central, you have Windsor, you have East Catholic, you have Northwest Catholic, who has a big man like 6'10", 6'11". So now you have 4 teams in the top 10 from one conference. Speaks volumes about that, you know, Coach. And I think that's a great point that you made. Now, as far as your time with Newtown, you mentioned about how at Wilton you were going in not blinded, but it's like you had to rebuild it from scratch, had to go from
Correct.
here and then start to build it. At Newtown, for people who may not know, was that the same scenario where you had to go in and rebuild it, or was it something where there were pieces, there was something there, but it still took time?
Well, I think the unfortunate part at Newtown was I took over at a time where there was a little bit of turbulence. not going to talk about the turbulence, but I replaced a highly respected coach in John Quinn. And there was a foundation there, but then I also had to make it my own. And unfortunately, then Sandy Hook hit. So the kids, we we basically began from scratch. The kids worked hard. That freshman group was obviously my freshman group. The sophomore crew was going to be my freshman crew. We began to lay a little bit more of that foundation, and then actually that's kind of that state tournament game that year, 2012, 2013, where number 28 Newtown, and we're just happy to be in that state tournament, has to go to the Palace at Crosby High School, go play the legendary Nick Argelli. And I don't know, whatever. The stars aligned that night. The kids took the game plan, and that's where I really met Dave Grant. And you know what? It was just a phenomenal thing that night there. It just aligned, and we were able to beat the number 2 team in the state at Crosby that night. And then a little bit every year. There was a year that we were down, but then you have to have basketball players to become highly successful. Yes, you can teach kids to play the game, but you also need athletes. You need shooters. You need rebounders. You need kids that are going to be invested in all aspects of the game. And I've been fortunate the last 4 years to have kids who have bought into what I've been selling. We've built this together with the players. And I've had some really, really good success. And now I'm faced with that. I graduated 3 great seniors. I had a freshman point guard that transferred to Choate. He had that opportunity. So right now we're putting the pieces back together, but it's a lot of fun, even for a 58-year-old, it's a lot of fun. You know what I mean?
I feel like coach in a lot of ways, and not to say that, when you have the horses and the studs and it's like you're winning games by like 50, 60 points, or you're barely having to coach, although I doubt even in those kind of games you're not coaching. But I've always believed, and I've talked to coaches who off the record have admitted it to me, that the games that they have the most fun are the games where, like you said, having to put the pieces together, having to, on off days or after practice, having to really think about and game plan, okay, this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We'll put this kid in as the 6th man off the bench. We'll do, various things. It just, like me even talking about it, it just sounds more fun than, all right, same 5 guys. All right, throw them out there. We're going to win by 50, whatever. You know what I mean?
I think you've hit it on the nose. When I've had to go scout teams multiple times because I need to devise game plans defensively, offensively. Plus, I've learned over the years, scouting a team one day doesn't mean anything. Luckily, if you could do multiple times now with video, it's phenomenal. But coming up with ways, whether it's gimmick defenses or things that you see that you could run against their defenses, those are the things that we really like as coaches. The challenges, the chess pieces. The close games, that type of adrenaline rush, those are all good things, especially when you come out on the W side of those close games.
Oh, it always helps, coach. And again, going back to obviously what you've been doing with Newtown, my partner at WATR, Dave Grant, who you know of, has spoken very highly of you on the air, off the air, about how you prepare your teams, how no matter what you have talent-wise, they seem to always compete right down to the last seconds, or even in games where people think, oh, Newtown's not going to beat a number 7 team according to the poll. Well, Newtown just beat that team. And it just sounds like from what Dave was saying was that. And I guess my question for you as coach, how do you get that much out of players, not just on a every other week basis, but every single game?
Well, I think it all begins, on any given year, it becomes in the off season, and it begins with, okay, what do we have coming back? What I ran, what any coach ran the year before, is it going to fit what you have coming back? Because again, at least at Newtown, we're dealt with who's coming back. I mean, unless I have a transfer from wherever, but that usually doesn't happen to me. So once I figure out, okay, this is kind of what my picture is, I'll paint in broad strokes and I'll fill in the details later. Then we have summer league. I've been fortunate. We go away every summer. Pre-COVID, we've gone away every summer to team camps in Pennsylvania. And then we play in the fall league. And this is where things begin to fill in a little bit more. And then the beginning of the season, we sit down, we talk with the captains, they know where we're at. I ask them, they've got to be the individuals, behind the scenes to make sure that my message gets sent, so to speak. But even the best laid plans, it does become, for me, and maybe it's me more than others, I think it's pretty much every coach, it's the scouting. If you scout well and you know your team, you can adjust. And if you scout lousy, you better adjust well during the game.
Great point. Can't argue that one. If you don't scout well, I mean, same thing with baseball. I mean, how do you think the Royals won the World Series back in 2015? They won because they were scouting the Mets prior to the World Series, and they saw that Travis d'Arnaud, who was their catcher at the time, could not throw out runners. So they took advantage of that and were able to. I mean, they did that during the entire postseason, but that just goes back to what you said. If you can't scout, then there's going to be problems, Coach. But Coach, I really appreciate you having on. I have a couple more questions for you. As far as Newtown this year, I know you mentioned about planning. 2020 and probably most of 2021, you could throw away plans because, as we know, one day you practice and then next day things could be shut down because of COVID. Now, you've been lucky enough to play a couple games, and I know with the masks and obviously with everything coming with COVID, how has that been for you, and how long did it take for you and the players to really adjust to everything?
Um, I think the first week or so, I think there was a little bit of, okay, wow, we're in the gym. Okay. I've said this to other people in town, to hear sneakers squeak and not my knees squeak was an excellent thing this year, man. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. But once we got through that first week, it was like riding a bike again. I dread an email if I see it from my athletic director or principal, because we don't know what that's going to say. If somebody's coming down the hallway, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to get out of here. No, the kids have been wonderful. It's been so nice. It's been so wonderful for these players to come in. They've been phenomenal wearing the masks. They've been phenomenal spacing each other. Our opponents, whether we've been on the road, whether we've been at home, have been phenomenal as well. It's been different. Each one of our levels rides their own bus this year, as opposed to JV and varsity riding together. And then whatever players aren't being used, like the freshman team, we're not cross rostering them this year. We're trying to keep things a little bit cleaner, so to speak. And any JV player that doesn't play varsity is not hanging around on the road anymore as well. So that's been a little different. I don't have an answer for this, but this is the best shooting team I've had, and I would think our shooting would have suffered this year because I didn't feel we played enough basketball in the off season. But it's been pretty great to just be back in the gym. Great for these kids to have something different in their lives as opposed to staring into a screen or not doing anything. I feel that The numbers in the state of Connecticut are in a great progression towards hopefully, we're moving back to some normalcy, hopefully next season. But listen, whatever we could do for these kids, and I'm sure I'm speaking for every coach in the state of Connecticut, whatever sport, we're going to do it because we just want these kids to get out there. And we as competitors want to get out there too.
Since I started this podcast in March, Coach, the one thing that I've seen constantly, the fact that, coaches like yourself and players are willing to want to come on here and during the hard times, like on the football side and even the basketball side, when things look like still questionable early on and even up until the last second, to be able to hear the passion and to want to get back out there. And then seeing, now that games are happening and such, it's great. I'm happy for the players. I'm ecstatically happy, like I am for the players, but for the coaches as well, because I know how much the coaches want to get out there. And like you said, when your knees aren't squeaking, or even if they are, but it's more so the sneakers than the knees, you have to love that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Just to hear the basketballs, just to hear the kids' camaraderie. And you know what? To elevate my blood pressure is not a bad thing.
No, definitely not, Coach. Coach, I have one more question for you. I don't know if you saw the news as far as the spring, because you said you coach outdoor track, correct?
I do, but I've been so invested in basketball. Clue me in here.
Okay. So here's what happened. From what I saw from Game Time, there was a report that came out that spring, at least as of right now, with protocols being aligned, that there will be a spring season. And as far as I wrote down, I didn't write down a lot of notes because I just got out of work. March 27th is when things will start as far as practice. April 10th is when games will start. Then May 27th is when the season will end as far as counting. And here's the big one. I saw this and I started to laugh, not in a bad way. A state tournament, potentially, June 1st to the 13th. So as far as May 27th is concerned, that's when the last games could be counted for towards the state tournament. As a coach, I know I'm putting you on the spot and you just heard this, but as somebody who missed their track season last year, and now you've now had an opportunity to have, I'm assuming, your first love of basketball. Now you can go to your second love, which is track. You must be on cloud nine.
Hey, listen, this is the best news I've heard for talking about March, end of March, April, and May, and potentially June. Spring sports are outdoors. I think outdoors is going to help us tremendously. Hopefully, as many people are getting this vaccine as possible. I am excited. I am looking forward to, well, first of all, we'll get through the basketball season, but you know what? If we can get the state tournament in something off the ground, then this bodes well for hopefully September and all of 21-22. But that is some phenomenal news that I just heard. And I'm pretty sure that the kids and the coaches at anybody in spring, after missing last year, we're all looking forward to it.
Coach, we've just about run out of time, but again, I really do appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, I know there isn't a state tournament, so I will not be able to see Newtown this year because of that, but hopefully next year, if any NVL's team goes up against Newtown and we're able to do that, hopefully I'll be able to see your program. Or if you just come down here and want to do a non-conference game, I'm down for that too.
Hey, we had Crosby again scheduled, so we'll see what Nick does. I mean, Nick might say, "Well, he would have had you last year at your place, so you better come to my place this year." So who knows? You know what? We're going to play Nick, and you know what? I've been fortunate to play Crosby, and I believe we played Naugatuck and Kennedy in the state tournament since I've been at Newtown. So the NVL and SWC and me. Seems like I can't get away from them in the state tournament. So who knows? We'll see you hopefully within a year.
Oh, it'll be great, Coach. You know who'll be even happier? My guy, Dave Grant. He'll be so happy.
Hey, tell Dave I said hello, Chris. I really do appreciate this time. This has been a lot of fun for me, and I just wish everybody the best.
I appreciate it, Coach. Now, wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.